Acting Defense Secretary Pat Shanahan making Defense Department priorities clear on his first day on the job during a meeting, telling Pentagon leaders to, quote, remember China, China, China. His comments come as President Xi delivered a speech to the Chinese military in which he threatened to use force in order to unify Taiwan and China. They also came after a Chinese admiral threatened to destroy 2 U.S. aircraft carriers in the South China Sea. Joining us tonight is Fred Fleitz. He's president, CEO of the Center for Security Policy, former chief of staff for the National Security Council. Great to have you with us, Fred. Also tonight, Gordon Chang, columnist, author of the books Coming Collapse of China and Nuclear Showdown. Thank you, Gordon. Fred, we appreciate you being with us. Let me start first with you, if I may, Gordon, and that is this admiral trying apparently to provoke the United States, threatening 2 aircraft carriers, to killing our sailors. If we're not provoked, she certainly should be, because it's time to get that kind of rhetoric out of the public arena in China. Yeah. I mean, it's outrageous.
It is outrageous. This is the second time in December that you had a Chinese officer talk about surprise attacks on the U.S. Navy. And the Chinese are not just talking about this. We learned in May the Defense Department announced that they had lasered 2 American pilots and temporarily blinding them in Djibouti. Right. So this is a worldwide problem, Lou, and it needs the attention of the President of the United States to tell the Chinese to back off, because I believe that he should say the response shouldn't be proportional. It should be overwhelming if they ever touch an American.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Gordon. What do you think, Fred?
Well, Lou, Happy New Year. Look, whenever a Chinese official says something so threatening, we need to take it seriously. And I have no doubt this represents the long-term plans of China. But keep in mind that this admiral does not have a command. He's known for making overly belligerent statements, and we cannot be sure his views necessarily represent the views of the current Chinese government.
Well, can I say something? When you say that about not...
I don't think he's speaking for the current government.
I apologize for interrupting you, but when you said we can't be sure that it represents the views of the communist Chinese government, are you kidding me?
I don't think
he wouldn't be talking if they didn't represent the views.
I don't think that's correct, Lou. He has made a number of belligerent statements that seem to go way over the top of what the rest of the Chinese government has been saying.
And when was the last time he was demoted for such outrageous rhetoric?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Just trying here. Just trying, Fred. Gordon, this idea that China is going to attack our ships. They're going to, and let's go to Fred's point and say, perhaps he was speaking just for a small group within the leadership of China. The fact of the matter is that the leadership of China is permitting it and becoming ever more aggressive. You hear from President Xi that he is willing to go to war over Taiwan. Well, the hell with President Xi and this nonsense about perpetually being able to steal hundreds of billions of dollars in intellectual property. I can't tell you, I've had businessmen, CEOs say to me, well, it's a very complicated problem. The hell it's complicated. They're stealing our stuff. It doesn't get much more direct or simple.
No, at least $300 billion a year.
Estimated as high as $600 billion.
And some people talk much higher. And also you have the other predatory trade practices of China. Xi Jinping believes that China should be self-sufficient. He doesn't believe in the notion of comparative advantage. He doesn't believe that foreigners should have any role in the Chinese economy, except, of course, for giving up their technology. And this point about this Chinese admiral speaking out of turn, we have heard so many Chinese flag officers and colonels say the same thing. They do represent the thinking at the top of the Chinese military, which is the reason why they're allowed to talk about it. And as you point out, these guys never get demoted for saying these things. On the contrary, they actually get promoted for it. So clearly, this is what the PLA is thinking, Lou.
Fred, let's turn to this president and Robert Lighthizer, his trade representative, saying 2 things that are important, and in my opinion, one is that more tariffs may be necessary for the Chinese to understand they're going to have to accommodate a new world order. That is a new world order that the IMF, the World Bank, the United Nations itself should be supporting, and that is the president's call for balanced trade globally. And the idea that we should not accept empty promises from the Chinese, who have made nothing but empty promises to this point.
Well, the Chinese are under pressure right now in these trade talks. There's evidence that they're having problems with their manufacturing, and they're going to probably be offering things to the United States in these negotiations. And Lighthizer is right. They're probably going to offer fake promises, like temporarily agreeing to buy more soybeans. Recently, they said they're going to start
By the way,
buying
in that
American...
regard, let me just insert again, Fred. And when you mentioned soybeans, we're not an emerging nation. More soybeans does not equal what the world's only superpower and the most advanced industrial economy in the world should be exporting to China. It's
right.
Nonsense.
It's a fake promise. You know, China recently announced it's going to allow, for the first time in history, imports of American rice. China could buy the entire U.S. rice crop in 2 weeks. Right. I mean, it's good for U.S. rice farmers. We don't produce a lot of rice. You're exactly right. We have to have manufactured goods, and Lighthizer wants to make sure there are no fake promises and that the Chinese make real concessions in these talks.
Fred, thank you very much. Gordon, thank you. Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Amazing times we're living in this brand new new year, 2019. Happy New Year, Fred. Thank you very much for your best wishes, and thank you, Gordon. Appreciate it. Good to see you both.